There are conflicting reports out of Afghanistan, some saying that Soviet forces now are in complete control of all major towns and highways, others saying that heavy fighting continues in key areas of the country, especially within a 100-mile radius of Kabul. Afghan rebels claim control of 2 towns in Langman province, just 50 miles from Kabul. As Marvin Kalb reports from the State Department, the Soviets appear to be digging in to stay.
President Carter demanded last Friday evening that the Russians pull out of Afghanistan. There were an estimated 50 to 60,000 Soviet troops already there. Since then, the number seems to have grown to 85,000, and an additional 20 to 30,000 troops are massing just north of the Afghan border, ready to come in.
Even though most analysts knew there were thousands of Soviet troops in Afghanistan, last week's coup d'etat caught most of them by surprise. Maybe it shouldn't have, because at least in hindsight, there were plenty of indications of what the Soviets were contemplating. In New Delhi, Bruce Dunning reports.
By all accounts, the Soviet takeover was meticulously planned and skillfully executed. But it has not been clear just how the Soviets were able to set up their coup without the Afghans realizing what they had in mind. Now, a member of a well-placed and influential Afghan family has fled to India, and because of his family's position, was able to give journalists the most detailed account so far. The first crucial move took place a week before Christmas. President Amin was living here at the center of Kabul in a former royal palace now called the People's House. The Russians persuaded Amin to move to an isolated hilltop palace on the outskirts of Kabul, not far from their embassy. Their excuse was that he would be safer there, well away from the city. But the move was intended to cut Amin off from contact with his government, and especially with Afghan army commanders. That gave the Russians a free hand as they began their massive airlift of men and equipment. The Russians also managed to lure Afghan guards away from key installations with promises of new equipment. The guards were then executed, the source said. On the night of the coup, the Russians moved a large force of armored vehicles, like the one still patrolling Kabul, out to the president's isolated palace. The Afghan defenders and the Russian attackers fought bitterly for almost 4 hours. And according to the Afghan source, casualties on both sides were heavy. The presidential palace was gutted. Amin was captured, given a quick midnight trial, and executed. Within 2 days, the source said, about 20,000 people were arrested, herded into makeshift jails.
Zabul in eastern Iran, they bring stories and occasional evidence of the Soviet-backed offensive. A rocket, they say, was fired from a helicopter at rebel Afghanistani tribesmen. A man who says he was injured while the man with him was killed. Afghanistanis have historically wandered back and forth across the borders here. Rebel tribesmen and their pitiful minor weapons are no surprise here, even though Iran has been less than enthusiastic in support of the anti-Soviet forces. The pro-Soviet government in Afghanistan today released 126 political prisoners. It wasn't enough. Thousands of Afghanistanis stormed Kabul's main prison in a bid to free others.